Oh yeah, this is what's to come. This video is sponsored by oliviameyer.com. Link is in the description below. Before we go ahead, just a word of thanks. Thank you all so much for the signups to my newsletter and all the support for my preset pack. I'm so glad you like them. I really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's go. You know, when I shoot digital, it's the limitations of film which I really miss. A lot of us analog digital shooters experience this. The fundamental difference really is every single decision in film is a commitment. Something steadfast, a promise for better or worse. This is not the case with digital. Digital is flexible, very flexible, and you understand what I mean. Digital gives us endless possibilities. Cost per click is virtually non-existent. The editing possibilities are limitless. Oh, you need to change your ISO mid-roll? No problem, we got you covered whole. Need to change to color after the shot? No worries, and it's gonna cost you squat. Oh, you need to adjust your white balance because you partied late last night and now everything looks a little wonky and blue? Well, digital is riding shotgun, my brother, my sister. You know we got you. Yeah, digital is beautiful. And those last 3 points, that's all possible because of RAW. Other than a flirt every now and then with the Fuji X100 series, I am a RAW shooter, through and through. RAW versus JPEG, RAW wins, hands down, every single time. At least in my book, and maybe in yours too. Heck, I am such a RAW shooter, I launched a preset pack for sale last month. It's based on the colors you see in my M9 and my M10P video. I got 2 more packs on the way. And I only mention this because these are best used on RAW files. And here I am, getting sidetracked. Getting sidetracked away from that big-ass business strategy of mine to take over the preset world by storm. And I'm getting sidetracked by a flippin' JPEG. Yuck. A lowly, compressed, limited, good-for-nothing JPEG. Who'da thunk? Now you might be saying, hey, Ollie, did you sell your Leicas and buy that new Fuji X, I don't know, whatnot? And I'll say to you, no, sir. I'll say to you, no, ma'am. I was just messing around with my new Leica SL2-S, going through all the settings, adjusting them to how I like to shoot, and I just happened to notice that these just might be the best damn straight out of camera black and white JPEGs you might ever well see. Rivaling, if not bettering, the mighty Acros film simulation by Fuji. And now that is saying a lot. I mean, Fuji's Acros film sim is the single most well-known black and white JPEG produced by any damn camera, at least on this planet. And here comes a Leica with their SL2-S, and a JPEG known simply as monochrome, high contrast, and yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, it fucking rocks. Truth is, I don't even want to talk about the highlight roll-off or the way my settings compress the whites and darken the shadow. I've got a link for you below on my settings, that's fine. For now, let's just take a look at some photos. Let them speak for themselves and you can decide if I'm full of it or not. So we just returned from Greece and the photos I'm going to show you were taken on our travels. Now I managed to wind it down to 50 photos, but that's still way too many. We're just going to be here all night. So what I'll do is I'll show you about 25 now, and after you're done with the video, check out the link below. I've put up a gallery on my site. All 50 photos are there. You can view them at your own pace, also at a much better quality without YouTube's compression messing up the photos. Also, you can find the SL2S settings I used for the monochrome high contrast JPEG setting on the camera. You can find it there. Now, I'll primarily provide some commentary around the photo and the lenses that I used as I go through them, and where the JPEG really hits home, that's where I'll go into the qualities that I like so much about this JPEG and the settings that I used. Without further ado, let's get down to those 25 photos. Let's go. So this was shot with the Nikon 24mm at around 1/5 of a second. And just being a little bit artsy on our way to dinner. Leica 75mm Summilux. I will say more on this lens later. Clouds and pure sunshine are pretty ironic, no? I mean, the brightest objects leaving the darkest of shadows. I boosted the contrast a bit here. Goats. Oh, we saw a lot of goats. Fearless little suckers. Now here we are already seeing some of those gorgeous tones from the Leica JPEG. This was taken on the Summilux 35mm. This also was taken on the same lens. Something you will find a lot of on the Greek islands are small white rental cars driving up dirt roads. And in this image as well, it was evening light, which accounts for the way that the Leica handles the contrast between the dark and the light areas. I like what it's doing here. Again, the 35mm Summilux, and here we start to see the way the whites are crushed. This is the look that won me over on this JPEG, to be honest. There's one thing that's missing a little bit here, which is skin. This crushed white on portraits, that's gold. That's what I'm looking for. Now this photo to a certain extent exhibits what I already mean about the crushed whites. Not quite, and not for nothing, I did push the whites in this one a little bit and I scaled down on the highlights. It's shot at 1/8000 of a second, And that, I mean, it just freezes all the water entirely in this picture. I think it's very cool, as well as the bokeh of the Summilux. It just really shines through in these areas here in the back, almost painterly. If the boatman knew that he was going to be almost YouTube famous, I don't know. Anyways, I can't remember which lens this is. Even with the busy sea, I find this is quite a calming photo to look at, especially if you've got, you know, Max Richter's and Grace Davidson's Path 5 Delta playing in the background. Great song. Listen to that with this picture and you'll know exactly what I mean. It's also got a strangely calming and irritating effect at the same time. Again, the 75mm Summilux, and we're seeing that crushed white look that I really like. And freckles. We're also seeing a lot of freckles here. Again, here's this effect on the whites of the walls here. In real life, these walls are pretty white. A dirty white, but pretty white. And the crushed white of the JPEG settings has an interesting effect on these walls. Let's see. You know, I can't believe I grew up by the sea, but didn't have a camera then. Now I have cameras, but no sea. Such is life. One day this will change. This also, it happens to be one of my favorite poses for female models. I love the angles, I love the power dynamic between the photographer and the model. I think it's a great pose, something that I do a lot actually. Here you can see that crushed white look I've been talking about. 35mm Summilux doing its magic. Here's more of that. You've got lovely soft grays with strong blacks. And you know, actually it's interesting, the number of different but still uniform textures that are in this photo only stands out to me now. I'm curious, can you guess which lens this is? This lens in combination with this JPEG gives it a real filmic quality, but that's a big ass hint if you were gonna guess which lens this is. Some want white picket fences and others want what's behind them. This photo and the two that will follow have all I look for in a photo. Besides my lovely wife, gorgeous tones for her skin, lovely light, and a lens that makes just magic happen. More of the same. The wind was crazy and we were just having fun out there. Also interesting to note, in this photo, the sun was shining towards the back of my wife. Literally 1 minute later, she's now facing the sun, which was on its last legs. You can see what that does to the whites, especially in the sea, versus the previous photo. Let me just go back. Here you can really see the highlights are getting pushed out, and here the highlights are all crushed and they're all a little bit more uniform. A side note, these kinds of photos are my favorite. I will do a video on that once. This was more or less the same time. It was a day later. I was using the same lens though. Now generally I'd want to have a little bit more padding between the frame and the two main actors in the photo, but sometimes, you know, you just gotta let the rule of thirds go grab a drink at the bar and sit this one out. You know what I mean? I gotta be honest, I'm not certain if this photo exhibits what I love about the SL2-S JPEGs, but I like what happened here from a compositional point of view, so I'm taking the liberty to just show this to y'all. This is not the kind of photo I usually take, but the wind was so extremely still that evening I just had to. And this is all about the contrast, right? You've got the contrast of the blacks and the whites, you've got the contrast of the original and the reflection. Cars. Some of the best light ever can be found in cars. And it's because the inside is basically one big flag surrounding your entire subject. Interesting story, this wave nearly tanked my SL2S. Now, I've already lost a Ricoh GR1V and a GR2 to waves. I'm glad the SL2S broke that streak. And it's the blacks in this JPEG which I particularly like. It shows how imposing that wave is. Imposing maybe not so much to me, but to my camera and then to my wallet. I think this is a beautiful example of how the camera handles the dark blue sky in contrast to the white house on the beach. How many photographers does it take to change a light bulb? I'm not quite sure myself, but send a Nikon shooter to change it and watch him turn it the wrong way all night long. Of course, I'm just kidding. Nikon shooters, don't hate. In this photo especially, it's the texture of the wood that really stands out to me a lot. I like the way the JPEG handles the different gray tones of the wood, really bringing out its texture. And finally, my favorite leaf to photograph, my favorite tree, which is the olive tree. Their two-tone nature already has that silver look to them, so the Leica JPEG really just only adds more here. And there you go. What do you think? I started this video by talking of the limitations of film as being something I miss, and that's the beauty of this lowly JPEG format, because it's got its own set of limitations. You just can't get that much out of it in post. And I'm not gonna lie, I did do some minor editing here and there, but it doesn't come close to what you can do with RAW and what I generally do with RAW. The SL2-S does a damn fine job of creating a black and white JPEG that I think is top notch. It makes it easier to embrace the limitations of JPEG. As I mentioned earlier, check out the link below to get access to my JPEG settings on the SL2-S. So does this mean the end of RAW for me? No, never. especially for my color work, but also my black and whites. And again, rather than speaking on it, let me show you why. Same deal as before, but much less photos, less commentary too. Most of the photos here are done with my Technicolor preset pack available on my site. Some are from a new pack I'm working on. I applied my go-to standard contrast preset here, increased the saturation a little bit and the contrast to get a sort of a Velvia look. This is what it looks like without the preset, and back. I showed the black and white of this before, and this is one of the new color looks I'm working on, and I'm really glad that I've got raw here to bring the color out. It would be a shame if I only had this in black and white. Now you've seen this photo before too, and this is one of my black and white looks. Now I know I slapped a preset on a sunset, but that evening was just about as fiery as you see here. The raw photo does not do that evening justice. To be honest, no photo of a sunset I guess does the sunset justice. For this photo, it would have been a shame to lose all these colors if I had only shot a black and white JPEG of it. So again, I'm appreciating the fact that I have a raw version of this photo. And this photo of my wife and I goofing around with the telephone poles and all, it needed a lot of work to bring it out. I'm not quite sure if the photo works itself, but it definitely would not have been possible with a JPEG. I would have not been able to bring her out. She would have been lost in the background. This you saw as well, and leave it to me to use a saturated high contrast look on an image that already has enough of both. But again, something that I'm really happy, I've got this option to go to a color if I wanted to, and I still have the black and white shot, which I prefer in this scenario, to be honest. One of the new looks I'm working on, it's a very subtle one, but in the right light, it's just pure magic. And this is a photo which I think would have been a little bit difficult to edit from a JPEG. Even if I had the color JPEG version of it, it would be doable, but you'd have a color shift to manage when you raise the shadows a little bit. This photo too, I'm very happy to have in color. I prefer it, to be honest. There she is, that deep blue. If I reset the raw, you can see that's what it actually looked like. So to be able to have raw and then manipulate it in such a manner that you can really get back the color of what you saw, which is somewhere in between the edited version and the unedited version, closer to the edited version, to be honest. That is fantastic. Raw is awesome. And I guess it's only fair to end on the wave that nearly snatched my SL2-S. There you have it. These are some versions of the raw photos that I took. So if you're thinking about it, me, JPEG only, I don't know. I will always shoot JPEG RAW simultaneously, maybe you too. This is our reward for embracing the digital formats and what they bring to the table. And now over to you. Let me know what your thoughts are on JPEG, on RAW, on straight out of camera, post-processing and editing. Have you got a way that you shoot your JPEGs? And it doesn't matter if it's the Leica SL2-S or any Leica for that matter. Photography is photography. That's what we're here for. And you may have noticed I tend to reply most of the comments you leave, so yeah, I look at the comment section. I'm not Joe Rogan. It's one of the parts of this YouTube journey I enjoy the most, to converse with you fellow photographers on all things that make photography, videography, and creativity just so damn cool. P.S. Check out Ben Staley. He's a great videographer, cool photographer. He's got a really cool channel. If you do like him, leave him a comment. Let him know that I put you guys onto him. Check him out. If you're checking me out, quite frankly, you already know him. All right. Peace.